My name is Jamie Piles. I joined Samaritan in December of 1996. We were homeschooling our kids, and we were already thinking outside the world's box, if you will. And I saw a little tiny classified ad about this new kind of idea I'd never heard of before. My first reaction was, that's the kind of thing that we would do, isn't it? And so I finally called the number, talked to them, and the more I asked them questions, the more I liked their answers.
Hey y'all, welcome to CrossPolitic on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. Pastor Toby Chuck Knox, I'm the water boy. You know, and a lot of people are kind of, making fun of, Black Little Mermaid, like woke Little Mermaid.
Okay.
I think for all the wrong reasons.
Okay.
I think Black Little Mermaid's not believable because she's swimming.
What? What? What does that even mean?
He's being racist. It's a racist joke.
I don't know what this even means.
Yeah, I have my. I just,
All right, moving right along. Page 50.
All right.
George Gilder.
Page 50 is a distinctly Christian marketing company striving to help Christian-owned businesses grow and succeed in our digital age. They don't want just to make a paycheck. They want to change the world, and that means building it alongside you. The mission is bigger than just Sunday. Page 50 wants to help Christians recapture the work week, economic and political influence, and the public square. Page 50 doesn't work with just anybody, but if you're a Christian believer, they want to work with you. Visit page50.com. That's the word page, the word 50, FIFTY.com, and see what they can do for you today. That's page50.com.
Why are you bringing up sore stuff, Gabe?
There's something that's going on here. I don't know what this means. But I'm grateful that we have George Gilder with us today. He is one of the leading economic...
The controversial George Gilder.
Yeah. He's
crazy.
Flamethrower for decades.
Yeah.
One of the leading economic and technological thinkers of the past, I don't know how long, 50 years probably by now.
At least.
Is the author of...
I'm 83.
Okay, so 83 years. He's been throwing flames.
Straight out the womb, baby.
Yeah, he did. Including the book. He's the author of the book Men in Marriage. He's a founding fellow of the Discovery Institute, an influential venture investor. He lives with his wife in Western Massachusetts. His brand new book is Life After Capitalism. Mr. Gilder, thank you for joining us on CrossPolitic again.
Glad to be here.
You didn't run a 5K this morning, did you? Because you tend to do that. You did that before our conference last year.
Yeah. Well, I got a slight Achilles problem running in the World Championships in Torun, Poland a couple months ago. So I've been relegated to a fitness center where I do a fake 10K, actually, this afternoon on an elliptical machine. So I hope to finish my 6 weeks of elliptical and return to running in 4 days. But pray for my Achilles tendon if you can.
We will.
Only when I'm running 10K, somebody chasing me, and I'm done in about
5K.
George, as a proponent of free markets, what do you mean by life after capitalism?
Well, it's worth understanding that capitalism was named by Karl Marx. And Karl Marx upheld materialist determinism. But little understood is that Adam Smith, even though he was a theist and a great philosopher, also mimicked physics. He wanted to repeat an economic model that captured the kind of determinism and perfection of Isaac Newton's great machine of gravity. It was going to be transformed economics in the form of economic incentives, and human beings were reduced to a puppet of rewards and punishments. And I call this the materialist superstition, and it's twisted all economics for decades, centuries, and today I think it's actually undermining capitalism in a serious way. So I'm introducing the information theory of capitalism that says that human creativity in the image of our creator is the foundation of economic growth and progress.
Wow.
You're basically saying like economies are personalized. They're made up of people. They aren't made up of kind of this brute force of incentives and punishments. If you is that kind of what you're arguing there?
Yeah, that's right. It's. I say that capitalism is essentially an information system, not an incentive system. It's not a great machine. It's not a science of scarcity. As Thomas Sowell pointed out decades ago, 1971, the Neanderthal in his cave had all the physical resources we have today. The difference between our age and the Stone Age is entirely the expansion of knowledge. And and knowledge has no limits. So I'm transforming economics from a great machine based on scarcity and zero-sum games into a science of abundance based on creativity in the image of our creator.
I just love that.
Yeah.
I love that starting point. I want you to expand on that notion of materialism as sort of the chief modern superstition. What do you mean by that?
They believe that wealth is essentially physical things, scarce resources. And therefore, implicitly, if one person gets more of these scarce resources than another person, other people have less resources. And so somehow economics connotes a zero-sum game. The rich are somehow exploiting the poor. It's a model that emerged from Marxism, and it's kind of applied cosmetics, but in the end, it's a determinist mix of scarcity. And I believe that, in fact, what remains scarce when everything else grows abundant is time. And that's the only real scarcity in economics, and real money represents time. When you run out of money, you're in fact running out of the time to earn more money.
So then someone who is not very rich, a poor person, part of what they have is they don't have money, so then they don't have time, so they don't get knowledge. How does one break that cycle?
No. What cycle is that? The cycle is that we live in a world of abundance and increasing abundance. There's a great book by Gail Pooley and Marion Tupy. Gail Pooley's at Discovery Institute with me, and Marion Tupy is at Cato. And it's called superabundance. And it demonstrates that measured by time prices, rather than these totally bogus economic numbers you read from government bureaus, they take massive bureaucracies spreading across Washington to determine whether prices are going up or down. But when you simplify economics by saying time is the scarce resource, you can show that the time that a typical worker has to spend to buy the 50 major commodities that sustain our lives has dropped 75% since 1980, while world population has grown 75%. Human beings are not just mouths, as economists think, they're minds. And human minds are the great, echoing the creativity, echoing their creator. Human minds constantly expand resources. They don't merely consume resources.
So then we actually do the math backwards then, because we assume we got to have less people and we'll get more stuff, when really the more people who have their minds to put together to work together create more resources, or more we gain more wealth.
Absolutely. More people. That's what Tupi and Pooley demonstrate. And incidentally, this book, I wrote the introduction to it, but this book got a 20-minute endorsement essentially by Larry Summers, who used to be Obama's economic advisor, chief economic advisor, was president of Harvard, but he's an eminent economist. And there are another Nobel laureates have endorsed it. It's a major breakthrough in economics, and it changes economics from the materialist superstition. The economics is a dismal science of scarcity into a science of abundance, where the only scarcity is time.
Early in your book, you say you talk about the deficit, our current American deficit, budget, federal government deficit, and you don't seem to be quite as concerned about it as most conservatives tend to be. Why not?
Because in Wealth and Poverty, my big worldwide bestseller that Reagan read and distributed to his cabinet, what was the question? I'm sorry. Wealth and Poverty. Something I said in Wealth and Poverty. What was the question?
You don't seem to be as concerned about the federal deficit.
The deficit. I quoted Macaulay's History of England, and Macaulay wrote some of the greatest prose in the history of economics, in describing the massive growth of the British deficit, all during the Industrial Revolution and the spread of the English Empire all around the world. The English national debt constantly expanded, and all the leading economists, every last one of them, deplored the national debt of Britain. They said it was going to bring us down one of these days, and maybe next year it would be all right, but soon enough, the whole economy would collapse. The only thing that matters is freedom and entrepreneurial creativity. As long as that isn't hampered, then the debt is sustainable. But if we declare a climate change religion and shut down the economy for COVID or something, and just generally succumb to this economics of stinginess and scarcity, we are doomed, regardless of whether we have a debt or not. Jimmy Carter almost balanced the budget and balanced our trade and had the worst economy in our recent history. What matters is this growth of knowledge and learning and freedom and faith. It's not some accounting analysis that economists provide.
George, most, kind of the gaps here are the worldviews here. Usually atheists are some sort of Marxist socialist, and usually Christians are some sort of kind of free market capitalist. How much of kind of your economic worldview is being driven by your Christian faith in the Bible?
Well, I certainly, a key theme is that you don't get rich by taking, you get rich by giving. That essentially, wealth is a product of altruism. Entrepreneurs have to respond to the needs of others, and they have to collaborate with others, and they have to respond to the creativity of their creator. This is the entrepreneurial role in the world, and it conforms with Christian truths. It doesn't deny Christian truths as the idea that human beings are kind of functions of carrots and sticks and rewards and punishments, that incentive model. Now, the other facet of information theory, which also accords with Christian belief, I think, is that creativity always comes as a surprise to us. Information, as Claude Shannon said, is unexpected bits. It's the amount of information. If everything I say to you today you already know, no information is being transmitted. Information is unexpected discoveries, and creativity always comes as a surprise to us. If it didn't, as Albert Hirschman said, we wouldn't need it. Yeah. And government planning would work.
Because government planning is not creative.
Right. No, it's not at all. It's all they want everything to be predictable.
Yeah.
George,
they were trying to guarantee the future, and you can't. Right. And God doesn't allow us to guarantee our futures.
Yeah, good.
That produces poverty and failure.
George, we're excited that Canon Press is actually republishing your book from the 80s, Men in Marriage. And it's, I don't know if you know, but it's actually causing a little bit of a stir, at least in our neck of the woods. Maybe it always has. Maybe every time it gets republished, there's a controversy.
Phil Donahue comes again.
But in the opening of your book, you argue that the prime fact of life is the sexual superiority of women. And there's some conservative men who are like, are part of a kind of a manosphere resurgence of biblical masculinity who have seen that line, I think, and thought, wait, what? Is George Gilder like leading?
A feminist?
Is he leading us back into feminism by saying that women are sexually superior? What do you mean by that? And can you say anything to the men who might be generally conservative and biblical in their thinking about manhood, but read a line like that and think you're going crazy?
Yeah. Well, a theme of Men in Marriage is that the man's link to the future passes through the womb of a woman. Sexuality is inherently procreative, and women play the central role in procreation. And this means that in those terms, in purely sexual terms, women are where it's at. And but men have a different role. Men are more aggressive than women. The men have many capabilities that excel women. We're stronger. We're better mathematicians in general. We're more interested in machines and instruments. We're crucial to the whole society. And civilization is based on these differences between the sexes. And that's the theme of Men and Marriage. And
George, it strikes me that women are stronger. Men are stronger. Men are more dominant, and so often we kind of think, well, we're the sexual superior gender. Trying to ask this question without it getting weird, but like men are the stronger ones, men are the more dominant ones. How in that image of sexuality does it shake out that women are the more superior ones in this situation? Men can easily overcome a woman. Does that? You guys want to help me with that?
The superiority is in sexuality, and we're forgetting it now. We imagine sex is chiefly some form of pleasure seeking, or it begins and ends with intercourse. But really, sexuality is about the bearing of children and raising and nurturing children. And in those roles, obviously, women are absolutely central. And since children are what connect families to the future, connect men to the future, men are dependent on women in this domain. Women are dependent on men as providers to a great extent, and protectors, and as and many forms of creativity beyond the family tend to be dominated by men. But there are different roles. God created us man and woman, and we're different.
Crazy talk. Crazy talk.
And those differences are the foundation of civilized society.
That's good.
And
yeah, Joe, I think some of the pushback has been that in your book, Man in Marriage, it seems that the men are just kind of like these brute forces, just kind of going around without focus, and then women are these
civilizers.
Yeah, more civilizers and kind of the savior of man's sexuality.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Well, when it was funny. Go ahead. Go.
Yeah. Well, I wrote one of the themes of Men and Marriage is the difference between, all the economists tell us that, there's a lot of sexism in this economy, and thus women get paid less than men and earn less money than men, and thus are somehow victims of the patriarchy. There are all these themes, but the fact is, single women earn more than comparable single men, and it's only married men that out-earn married women, and that's because married women are distracted to a great degree by their nurturing role, which is absolutely central to the survival of the society, and also, in a less recognized way, to giving men a tie to the future, to release them from the otherwise short-term perspectives of their sexual nature.
I think, though, I want to push back a little bit, George. Don't hurt me on this. But it seems, though, that this makes woman out to be a more moral individual, where I think, like, for instance, a long time ago, like, let's say 30, 40 years ago, women weren't invested in porn the same way they are today. There is a difference in the moral ground that's been lost. And go ahead.
Invested in porn or what?
Yeah.
They. I mean, that I believe, is the breakdown of the family. The family is the foundation of civilized life, and marriage and family, and what we call poverty and what we call degeneration and breakdown is mostly a reflection of the breakdown of the family structure that gives meaning and continuity and futurity, links to the future for our lives, and gives deeper meaning to our lives in the context of our creativity in the image of our Creator.
Maybe can I try?
Yeah,
take a step
I just want to say that we don't have those kind of women anymore. Like, so because of the breakdown of the family, now those kind of women who would have been more civil or restorers, they don't exist anymore.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of men. That's right. So a lot of men are saying now, maybe in the 70s and 80s that was still the case, but many of them are saying a lot of women have slept around. A lot of women have done the porn thing. Many women have had multiple abortions. Many,
chasing their careers, and
many women have chased the career thing. And so some are saying, doesn't it take two to tango, George? Don't both men and women need to be civilized? And
yeah, that's why you need the church. Why you need faith. I mean, that's the breakdown of the family, I think, is caused by a breakdown of the moral order, which is fostered by churches and families and traditions. In information theory, the low entropy carriers, the predictable meaning-bearing structures that accommodate unexpected creativity.
Do you think, so would you say, in the same way that women can play a role, a virtuous woman, a woman who is in line with her nature, the way God made her, she can play a role of a kind of savior, civilizer to men? Is there a comparable way in which when a man then marries a woman and commits to a woman, he is also a civilizer to her, that he is a savior to her?
I think that's true. That's a good point. I don't focus on it in Men and Marriage because I think throughout human history, it is men outside the family order tend to be short-term and predatory. And, I talk about society is invaded every generation by barbarians. And these barbarians are single men. And they get subdued by women and taught the long-term purposes and meanings of their sexuality. And which reach through the womb of women to the birth of children who bear our genes and our inspiration and teaching into the future. And that's really the foundation of civilization. I even show in Men and Marriage that the whole Industrial Revolution chiefly occurred in precisely those parts of Europe where the nuclear family was most established. And this has been crucial to productivity and progress throughout the history of humans. And this is one of the themes of Men and Marriage.
I think part of the issue here is, by what standard kind of issue? By what standard are you defining and measuring what's superior over the other? And so part of, I think, what you're arguing here is that women's sexuality is superior over man's sexuality in the sense that
she can make babies.
She can make babies. Men can't. Their sexuality is long-term, visionary oriented. Men's sexuality is very short, very short run and short-lived. and that her sexuality creates civilizations. Man's sexuality is, only really about pleasure. Like there's more than just pleasure to women. There's society that's coming out of her than just pleasure and sexuality. And so is that kind of getting at what do you mean by superior here?
Yeah, I think you're too preoccupied with the superior word. I'm just. This is a book that upholds, in general, different sex roles. It doesn't mean they have to be ruthlessly enforced, or every woman who wants to be a lawyer has to be somehow suppressed or something, or a woman who wants to run for president has to be. It doesn't say that. It just does say that civilization is based on the familial order, on men supporting particular women for a lifetime in order to be able to claim particular children as their own and have their genes and their identities extended into the future and their lives given a long-term meaning rather than a short-term predatory sexuality.
George, you've been involved in the conservative world for, I don't know,
83 years
since you were born.
Yeah, my dad was a conservative who was lost in the Second World War.
I remember reading that in the epilogue of Men in Marriage.
That's right.
It's actually a beautiful story. What's your assessment of the conservative movement broadly here in 2023? I mean, you were involved in Reagan administration, and before that, you've seen a number of administrations come and go. You've seen the conservative movement, through the Reagan years, through the conservative resurgence, the Trump administration. As one of the sort of grandfathers of the modern conservative movement, what is your assessment? How are we doing as a conservative people in general? Are you optimistic? Are we heading in a healthy direction, or are you pessimistic and think we're in big trouble?
Well, I think that your form of conservatism with a Christian foundation is. I wrote the Israel Test. It's a Judeo-Christian order, and I think that form of conservatism is strong, but I wish conservatives in general would get out of Hunter Biden's laptop. I'm really this idea of treating your opponents chiefly as criminals or something, and just obsession with various personal issues seems to me to be a great mistake of conservatism at the moment. I think we gotta start presenting our own ideas rather than just obsessing with various offenses of the left.
Yeah, I think conservatism. Maybe George, you could also fill this out for me. But our idea of conservatism kind of came out of the 30s and 40s, where conservatives started becoming gathering around what we were against. We're against socialism. We're against, regulation. We're against all this stuff. Instead of conservatism has lost a vision of what it's for. Would you say that's fair?
I think that's what in life after capitalism. That's the theme, and I hope that the book works to have some influence. It is having a pretty good reception now, and I hope that ultimately this movement that Gail Pooley and Marion Tupy and others have led into superabundance will will prevail over this narrow-minded, predatory kind of vision, where the chief goal is to put your opponents in jail.
Well, go buy George Gilder's book today.
Yes, I got it.
Life After Capitalism.
Go buy all his books.
And of course, Life After Google.
Yeah.
You got Knowledge and Power.
Men and Marriage, which is coming out by Canon Press.
Check out.
Coming out.
And it's really exciting that Men and Marriage is coming out again. That's that's my most personal book, and I'm delighted to have it coming out again with Canon Press. They've done a beautiful design, and I think it's a great moment for
now.
And for an old book that's really 50 years old to be as relevant today as it was the day, more relevant today than the day I wrote it.
And Canon Press is also doing a documentary on you.
That's right.
Is that right?
They've been working on it.
He hasn't seen it yet. He's like, I think they are.
Well, very good. We always appreciate having you on, George. Appreciate all your work, and we will be praying that your Achilles is healed up and you can get back to running.
Thank you so much.
All right, George.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Do you have the ad you want to read before we go?
Oh, yeah. I got to read it.
I'm just waiting for you to.
Oh, sorry. I forgot about my ad. One more ad. Gravity Jack is a full-service digital agency specializing in the development of virtual and augmented reality experiences, mobile apps, blockchain, and Web3 projects. Founded in 2009 as the first American agency to offer augmented reality, they even patented it. Gravity Jack's digital experiences have been a source of innovation for small business, Fortune 500 companies, and the U.S. military. Get your vision in motion at gravityjack.com.
They're doing some amazing things with AR. You want to check those?
George, I just sent you an email about introduce us to Gail Pooley.
All right, let's do that.
Superabundance.
George, you stay right there. Stay right there, George. If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until next time, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is CrossPolitic.
When I grow up, I want to work for a woke company, like super woke.
When I grow up,
I want to be hired based on what I look like rather than my skills.
I want to be judged
By my political beliefs.
I want to get promoted
based on my chromosomes. When I grow up, I want to be offended
By my coworkers.
and walk around the office
On eggshells.
and have my words policed.
By HR. Words like
Grandfather,
peanut gallery.
long time no see.
No can do.
When I grow up,
I want to be obsessed with emotional safety
and do workplace sensitivity training.
all day long. When I grow up, I want to climb the corporate ladder.
just by following the crowd.
I want to be a conformist. I want to weaponize my pronouns. What are pronouns?
It's time to grow up and get back to work. Introducing the #1 woke-free job board in America, redballoon.work.